WWE Class of Champions is this Sunday, and a lot of this is kind of going to be generic a little bit because every title's on the line. Basically replacing Night of Champions. Makes sense, but it's going to be a long one for sure. So let's get to it. First off, the eternal feud for the Raw Tag Team titles must continue as the Street Profits defend against Angel Garza and Andrade, who ironically have been a much better team in 1 week than they ever have with Zelina Vega by their side, which kind of coincides with the next match we'll talk about in a little bit. Andrade and Garza have been in a slump over the past few months, ever since this whole COVID era, fucking Performance Center era, whatever you want to call it, Corona Clam era. I don't know what you want to call it. Just make up something. Make it a Corona Clam era at this point. Fuck it. But Andrade and Garza have kind of been in a slump. Of course, when Garza first came up a couple months ago, he was the shiny new toy, and it was great. But now he's just kind of there. And Andrade's just kind of there. And the Street Profits are kind of just there. And we had some bachelorette chick or something. I don't remember. And Ivar apparently became a ladies' man for all of this intertwined for some reason, which I'm not mad about the last part, but still. With that being said, Andrade and Garza will win to end this horrible piss break of a feud. Not that it's bad, it's that we've seen it about 50 times by now. With this pandemic, you can only do so many matches. And hell, when we weren't under a pandemic, you could only do so many matches with so many people so many times before people weren't going to watch it. And in a pandemic, you basically double and triple that. And it's through no fault of their own. It's just those are the only teams that are being shown. And at least on Raw, that's the only teams that are being shown. And they're not bad teams. It's just, again, they're the only ones there. Or the only ones besides the War Raiders. And that's about it. Like, every other team is either mixed together or just enhancement talent. Which, again, there's nothing wrong with that either. But you have to have a solid tag division, WWE. You can't just do this. You can't just hotshot 2 teams and call that a division. 2 teams is not a division. 2 teams is just a rivalry. 3 teams is not a rivalry either, but still, it's better than 2. At least you can make a triple threat match or something. But you need more teams on Raw. It just makes no sense. SmackDown is a better tag division than you. NXT has miles ahead the best tag division in WWE. And don't get me started on people like AEW, Impact, New Japan, the Ring of Honor, promotions that actually have tag divisions and are thriving. It's unbelievable, but it's understandable because people don't want to work during a pandemic. I get it, but you have to make money eventually, and you cannot lay on those WWE contracts, which, mind you, are very lucrative, but you can't lay on them forever, or you'll just be in a Legends deal, and it'll be severely less than what it is. Look at all the legends that still have to work, even in this pandemic. People that were let go for this pandemic. You can't just do this every week. It's ridiculous. So hopefully, Garza and Andrade win and end this, because this is just sad at this point. On a brighter note, though, Zelina Vega finally gets to wrestle. Not only that, but for the Raw Women's Championship on the fucking kickoff. I would have put the tag match on the kickoff. Not this match. This match would have been a main card. This probably would have been semi-main, in my opinion. Just based on the card, this would have been semi-main, or at least in the middle of the card. Not on the fucking kickoff, but nonetheless, Asuka defends against Zelina Vega. And Vega has been impressive this entire pandemic era. She has made herself a star. And Zelina Vega will be the one to defeat Asuka. If not, this was all for nothing. Much like our last match there. Speaking of for nothing, Lashley defends against Apollo Crews to defend the right or become The face of America. Lashley wins, no doubt in my mind. Next up, in a double title, winner takes all ladder match to unify to become the undisputed Intercontinental Champion as AJ Styles faces Intercontinental Champion Sami Zayn and Intercontinental Champion Jeff Hardy. Sami lost the title because he didn't want to come in from Canada, sit for 6 months. AJ had the belt, won a tournament, lost it to Hardy, who had a knee brace. And now we have this match, which is probably one to be the best match on this card. Guaranteed. Now, for those who have not seen a double title ladder match before, or a unification match of any kind that involved a ladder, go back and watch WrestleMania 10. It's basically the same match, but it added a person in there. You must grab both Intercontinental titles. You must grab them both and maintain possession. After climbing the ladder, you must maintain possession with both titles to unify them and become the undisputed Intercontinental Champion. I really don't care who wins this, because either way, we're going to have a great champion on our hands regardless. But just because I love what he's doing, I will pick Sami Zayn so he can rub it in our face even more, and it's just fucking great. Next up, SmackDown Tag Titles. And speaking of, SmackDown has a much better tag division, even with New Day out, even with some other teams out. It's more teams than Raw, I'll say that much. But we have to have this happen eventually, as Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro defend against the Lucha Things. I don't care which two of these are in the match. Nakamura and Cesaro retain, and Kalisto, becomes a bad Lucha Thing instead of a good Lucha Thing, like he has been ever since that became a meme. More tag titles, as the unlikely team of Shayna Baszler and the walking Nia ability herself, Nia Jax, defend the women's tag titles against the Riot Squad. Speaking of losing tag teams, you lost one of the greater tag teams on Raw and the Iconics, even though they're still technically together. Technically, they're still there, but as a team, they cannot team anymore. So Peyton is on a singles run, and hopefully we'll see her. Hopefully we'll see her in a title match down the road. But this is inevitable. Nia does something to lose for the team and the Riot Squad, which is probably the only actual team, because you got rid of the Kabuki Warriors, you got rid of the Iconics, you got rid of whatever else you had. Lana and Natalya are a thing, so I guess that's a team. But as far as an actual team, this is the only team you have. It makes sense to give them the titles and give them something. They have worked their asses off for years. They need this. Riot Squad wins. Next up, Bayley W. No longer Bayley No Straps. Defends the SmackDown Women's title against Nikki Cross, which was ridiculous in its own right. They lost the tag title. They lost the Raw title. And only Bayley's title remains. Sasha Banks was Pillmanized a few weeks ago. And a few weeks later, somehow, miraculously, destroyed the business. Destroyed the spot of being Pillmanized. We will probably never see. I hope to God it is years that we see someone get Pillmanized in WWE, because you have killed it. Somehow, in a fucking neck brace, is walking, is sitting, is doing everything. It makes no sense. If there was not a pandemic, Sasha would be out for months. But you can't do that because you don't have anybody that wants to work. And Sasha wants to work. Good for her. But you just ruined the ultimate injury angle, the Pillmanizer. I don't even have to explain it. I might, just for people that are too young to understand. But it's like if someone was thrown into a burning building, and in the next scene they have no burn marks at all. There's no body cast, there's no nothing. They're completely fine, no skin has been burned off. They're not ashy as fuck. Nothing. That is the equivalent of what we saw over a month ago now, almost. And she was walking, she had a neck brace, she was talking coherently. That is unbelievable, even for WWE standards. And those are very low to begin with. But nonetheless, with Alexa Bliss being Sister Abigail and being controlled by The Fiend, and as we saw on SmackDown, basically could be Universal Champion for all we know at this point. Which she should. Better than what we have, but either way, regardless, we finally have a one-on-one match. Nikki Cross faces Bayley. Nikki wins the title. Nikki finally gets her moment, and Bayley goes back to just being Bayley. Because as much as I love our Karen Overlord, it needs to end eventually, and she needs to have her comeuppance eventually. You know, it's happened. They've lost all the belts, and they should lose all the belts. You know, it's just natural progression. Next up, in an ambulance match, Drew McIntyre defends the WWE Championship against Randy Orton. It's very simple, but we haven't had one in over a decade, so I will explain. There will be an ambulance at ringside, or at Thunderdome side, or whatever the fuck we're calling it now. Because they want to move out of the Thunderdome for whatever reason, which is the stupidest thing you could ever do. Nonetheless, an ambulance will be ringside. The only way to win is to stuff your opponent in the ambulance, shut the door, and hopefully there's a driver inside, or you'll have to drive it to the hospital, and then you'll become champion. But there was the possibility of Keith Lee being in the match, but that didn't happen. Orton seems okay enough to continue, which wasn't a doubt in my mind. They were going to do this eventually, but it would have been great to see Lee and McIntyre. But again, they've showed it to us twice or 3 times now, and again, it's lost its luster. It needs to be off a little bit. Much like this match is, but at least we've only seen it once. You know, this is the rematch, and it makes sense. Having 3 or 4 punts, having 4 or 5 claymores. Someone's going to be in an ambulance, if not a morgue, if this continues. I really don't know. Because if Orton wins, we could see Orton and Lee have a feud, and that would be great. I would rather have Drew lose at Survivor Series. If he was to lose the title, it'd be Survivor Series, Rumble, or something like that. Something bigger than this. But Drew will retain. I would not be surprised at all if Orton wins. He is mentally unstable. This is his kind of match. And I say that with his IED disability, we'll call it. I don't even know how you even remember that was a thing, but the man literally hears voices in his head, and this is Orton's kind of match, really. All the fucked up things you can do in this, Orton's got this in the bag, but I will pick Drew to retain because I want this to be at a bigger event. And your main event, the Universal Championship, the big dog. And yes, I said a big dog because he has grown up now. He is officially a big dog. Universal Champion Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman. The special counsel, the tribal chief, will lead an actual big dog. Not just some pussy. Not just some bitch, but an actual big dog. To fight Jey Uso. Nothing against Jey Uso, but that's who we have here. Uso won a fatal 4-way. More power to him. But Roman wins, lol. I would love Jey to win, but it's Jey Uso. It's his first title match for any singles title. Ever. Not counting house shows. There is no way in my mind that he will win the title on his first ever title opportunity that's not a tag title with his brother. There's no way. He doesn't have the legs for it. He doesn't have the stamina for it. He could upset Roman. I would not be surprised at all if that happened. But this is Roman Reigns. Much like if this was Charlotte in a match, you pick Charlotte because that's what happens. They win. That is what happens. And with Roman being in this Brock Lesnar type position, which is kind of weird to say, to be honest, we probably won't see him have a 20-minute match, a 40-minute match. It'll probably be like 5 minutes tops. Roman wins because it's Roman. And I hate ending it like that. So simple, but it's true. And with that, Clash of Champions is this Sunday. And hopefully, the 24/7 title is on the line somehow, because this is the only title that is not on the line on this show. Maybe the kickoff, maybe not, but every title has to be on the line somehow. We'll see it somewhere, and I'll love it because it'll be the moment of the show guaranteed.